Would you like to see a podcast about how not to highline and behind the scenes on the Bewilderness Podcast on this episode of How Not to Highline? Hi, I'm Ryan Jinks, and today we are doing a podcast with the Bewilderness Podcast with Kyle Murphy. And this is, we're going to film just the whole thing. He doesn't edit his audio, so it's just raw. And so we're just going to let the camera roll. And if you want to double speed it on YouTube or just skip through it, or if you find the whole thing interesting, feel free to watch it. But we're going to post just because we're going to talk a lot about what goes on behind the scenes in the channel and about my life as well. So if you're interested in that, enjoy the show.
Stick around.
All right.
Sweet. What is up, Ryan? I'm pretty excited to have this conversation with you.
Hi.
So like we talked about a little bit off air, my audience probably doesn't really know much about you. So let's start just with who you are and like a little bit about your history, how you got into what you're doing now.
Cool. My name is Ryan Jinks, and I live in the Central Valley of California, which allows me close proximity to Yosemite, the beach, the mountains.
Yep.
And so I didn't start going to the mountains until I was 21. And when I realized Yosemite, you can go up the walls, I decided that I wanted to pursue that.
Right.
And so I climbed for, 2005 to like 2014, when I forsake that to pursue slacklining and highlining relentlessly.
What was that transition like? Like, how were you introduced to highlining?
At Pipeworks Climbing Gym.
Really?
I saw slackline, and that was back in 2005 that I actually first started slacklining, but there was like almost no information online, and I didn't know anybody.
Right.
And so it was really hard to figure out how to even tension a primitive basic system.
Right.
So I figured things out, and I am a kind of a go-getter. And so like just a year later, I was trying highlining, which was a really bad idea because I didn't know shit.
Right.
So that pursuit of highlining and what it takes to set it all up was from basically 2005 to 2013 when I basically got plugged into the community. Once you're plugged in, you basically can't turn it off. So once you know what a web block is and out of tension and what a line grip is, you're like, oh shit, that would have made things easier.
Yeah. And also probably in retrospect, thinking about things you did wrong, like, wow.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Hence why I started a YouTube channel in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. 3.5 years into it. Called How Not to Highline.
Right.
Because it's everything that it was my journey of what I was doing wrong for basically 8 years until I got plugged into the community. And even then, I realized the information was like just spotty.
Right.
So then you realize how little we know as a community. And so lately I've been pursuing the science behind it and try to like innovate just a little bit more of the knowledge.
Yeah. And before we started, you showed me around your museum. You got a testing situation in your garage. It's pretty extensive. I can tell you spend a lot of time on this.
Nobody comes to my house and wonders if I'm into slackline.
Right.
So right now we're in our gear room, my gear room where I film all of my episodes.
Right.
I try to film them like outside and where I'm doing my projects if I'm like more vlogging.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm just talking, it's like nice to have a base place to film.
Right.
And I have a gear wall full of my gear, all the shiny stuff. I have like all my ropes and bigger stuff in the garage. The problem is I use the stuff. And so when I want to film, I have to put all my shit back. Just like we did for setting up this this podcast, I had to put all the stuff on the wall because we are filming this for my channel.
Right. And
if you want to watch this podcast, I don't know if you've had any full podcast filmed yet.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
this would be a cool experience for my audience as well.
Yeah, if your audience wants to watch this, you can do it on How Not to Highline. We're going to probably try to release it on the same date.
Yep.
And so we try to make the gear wall because there's a visual effect to this podcast.
Oh, yeah, it's super cool. And I think, honestly, most climbers like dream of having a wall like this. So I think it's pretty rad.
Yeah, it was a little spotty at first, and I've been filling it up. I mean, it doesn't take much to fill it up. I kind of cheat with some stuff, but I have collected more gear over the time. But anyways, the problem is, like, yesterday I was at Pipeworks doing some climbing science, and I had to put some stuff back on the wall before we could even do this. So,
Right.
It forces me to stay organized, but I've really enjoyed having a studio with sound. I got sound things you can't see in the camera and like lighting and screening and everything.
Dude, it looks great in here, man. You got a really cool setup.
Yeah, it makes making videos more efficient, which is how I can put out more than one episode a week often, is by making everything I do streamlined.
Right. It makes a lot of sense. So I just want to pause real quick, rewind.
Yeah.
So you were talking a little bit, like most of my audience is probably not really too much into highlining. Definitely some slackliners among us, but definitely more from the climbing end of things. And so tell me a little bit about your climbing experience, because I saw your video on How Not to Big Wall. So I assume you must have had some experience with that. So
I've topped out 17 times, 16 of which were in Yosemite, 7 of which was El Capitan.
Right.
I had 10 failures, not in a row, kind of sporadic. But since 2009 to 2014, I never failed because I learned how to plan. I don't consider myself a pessimist, but I do figure worst case scenario on things.
Yeah.
But I was starting to get more and more successful on my trips. And so, but I was enjoying big walling 2 or 3 times a year. And I got kind of efficient at being inefficient. I'm not a great climber, so I usually pair up with somebody who can like do a 510, 2,000 feet up.
Right.
But
not super common either. I mean,
yeah, I focused on logistics and doing like C3 plus.
Right.
I was like that other half, because everybody was like, "Oh, I'm gonna take my chalk bag up for that 511 on the nose," and I'm like, "Go for it, dude."
Right.
I would aid climb the pancake flake. Like, that's me.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's you don't have to. I just
right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's an important role too, especially for big walling. And I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm just getting into it, or hoping to get into it.
Yeah, you'll get into it.
I think it's there. The desire is definitely there. But on these larger trips, it definitely seems like to have a role, someone who's really focused in on logistics, if not both of you guys, is going to be crucial to being successful on those big walls.
I've been able to go with people that could climb 512s and have no big wall experience, and we'd crush a free rider or something.
Right.
It's nice to have a partner like really well, but it's also kind of a neat experience to go with someone you don't know that can handle tough shit.
Right.
It's really important to have somebody can operate smoothly, not make mistakes when they have not slept in 2 days.
Right.
Or drinking water. I mean, they might be grouchy, but like they can still not fuck up.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So like, why might you not drink water or sleep on a big wall for several days?
Because some people suck at math. And a rule for me is 1.5 liters per person per day.
Yeah.
Or 1.5 bottles per person per day.
Right.
Because I discovered they sell 2-liter bottles with just water in it. But when I didn't know that, I bought, or you can buy soda water.
Right.
And then you don't have the syrup. But anyways, figured out how to clean soda bottles. I only take 2-liter bottles. Gallon jugs don't clip well. They suck. And you can clove hitch the neck. So you want everything clippable. I would freeze half of them solid. So I'd create a freezer at the bottom. I could put cold food in the bottom. By the time you get to it 3 days in, you have still cold water.
Right, that way you're not like eating Mountain House only.
Yeah, you want to eat really good for the first 2 days and then deteriorate as you go. If you start jet boiling, you have to add water. If you start, if it's hot, don't beg wall.
Yeah,
just a rule.
Yeah,
just don't. It's not going to be fun.
And it's probably a little more dangerous as well, right?
It's just not fun.
Right.
You literally, I could drink a full gallon a day and still dehydrate.
Yeah.
So, I only go when it's like 70 and sunny now because like I don't fucking care. It's just not going to be worth it to me.
Right.
Those logistics, how many squares of toilet paper to take, how to shit on a wall.
How to shit in a bag, yeah.
How to shit in a bag.
Yeah, you know what, dude? That was probably one of the things that I was really stoked about you covering in that video. Just because like it's one of those things like, I do a lot of wilderness activities. I'm no stranger to backpacking and things like that. So
it's useful in those situations.
Right. Well, we have different procedures, for backpacking and packing out your shit than when you're hanging off of a big wall, So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I want to dive a little bit deeper. Sounds all funny. Into the logistics of shitting into a bag, because you can take those 2-liter bottles, cut 3/4 way around, make it like a Pac-Man mouth.
Right.
Put your stuff in at the bottom and the top, and then duct tape it. Because all right, my first wall I tried was half dome, which just do it in a fucking day.
Yeah.
Or just like take a nap for 2 hours. Your body does great with naps. You try to sleep for 8 hours on a wall, you're just fucked.
Yeah.
So we took a PVC pipe, Schedule 40 PVC pipe, that tube I made. Like, we're so afraid of our own shit.
Right.
And it weighed like 9 pounds.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be heavy.
Dude, we never started. We never left the ground. By the time we carried 90 pounds each to the base.
Yeah, fuck that.
It took 9 hours to hike a 1/4 mile up the death slabs.
Of course.
Because they're, the death slabs.
Yeah.
But I learned how not to do things. Because I'm sure there's like people I could have like met or asked. Yeah. I'm not a guy who's like, wow, you're an expert, let me go with you. I'm like, oh, wow, you don't know anything? Let's figure this out together.
Right.
Which I am trying to learn not to do that either.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get into acro, CrossFit, or these other activities, skydiving, and try to find people who are really fucking good at it.
Yeah.
So I don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I started a podcast, is to like help create those access points for people. Because I know for me, so I went to Lake Tahoe Community College and studied wilderness education, and that was they give you, there's some really high quality teachers there for sure, but at the same time, you're not leaving that college with like enough experience to really go out and do everything on your own always. But it does like offer that network for you to like start to get in contact with people. And I just remember in the beginning days, like having no fucking clue just how to get a hold of people who are doing these things that I wanted to take part in, which at the beginning it was like really like mountaineering focused. And then I started to shift towards climbing. But that was like one of the main motivations for the podcast, is just like, hey, here, if my listeners are now able to like access you and all the videos that you have out, and your bolting Bible, which we'll get to, and things like that.
Yeah, for me, everything I don't know if it's Silicon Valley culture. It has to be scalable for it to mean something to me. Now, I do try to balance it out with going with like people that I have a good connection with, because I definitely like that intimate connection rather than staring at a fucking lens all the time. But at the same time, I don't generally take new people highlining, because I'd rather teach 10,000 people how to highline and then just go with my friend.
Right.
Same with bolting. I want to teach 10,000 people how to bolt, so I don't have to.
Yeah.
and make a huge impact, because I want to make an impact. And
yeah, totally. So you started talking about Half Dome as your first objective.
Two things don't do when you first big wall.
Don't do Half Dome.
Don't do Half Dome.
What would you suggest?
Won't. Don't do the nose, because that makes you a dick.
Right.
Because it's very lateral. It goes back and forth sideways, and that's a whole different level you got to figure out, which slows you down.
Sure.
And then you get a clusterfuck around stove legs, where people are trying to get from sickle ledge to stove legs, and you get stuck between pitches 5 and 6 because people don't know how to put their hull bag on the right side of the anchor, so they're trying. It's just cluster.
Right. So then, what you're saying, for my guests who don't know anything about big wall climbing, is that if you put yourself in that situation as a new person, not only is it going to be probably a miserable experience for you, but also you're fucking everybody else who's more experienced and up there ready to move efficiently.
You got to realize that Free Solo is amazing, the movie. But you have to realize, like, it draws a lot more people to the rock that already was on there.
Yeah.
And you just be mindful that the park's overcrowded, that, don't take a 70-degree sunny day, Saturday, to try to do the nose when you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Right.
There's a lot of beginner 10 to 19 pitch big walls, one-night walls. You don't have to, oh, by the way, you don't have to go to the top. Who said you have to go to the top?
Yeah.
just go up 5 pitches, sleep on a portaledge or a ledge.
Feel what it's like.
And climb as much as you can the next day and go down.
Come back down, yeah.
Yeah, and that's more flexible with work schedules and life. And you'll realize that you made it 2 pitches up, couldn't set up your portaledge, got no sleep. You still stayed up there, decided to only do a pitch the next day. You had the leader clean it because you were just done.
Right.
That's how it'll go. And then you'll know when it's time to do the nose.
Right. You'll feel ready.
It's okay to do it over multiple days. Like, that's pretty normal. I hope to do it in a day, and I want to be like strong enough to do it in a day, because even just jugging it is going to take like a bit of time,
right,
and energy. But my favorite part about big walling is the camping up there. It's free camping in Yosemite. It's legal.
Yeah, you don't need a permit.
Rangers will not knock on your portaledge in the middle of the night.
Right.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I actually try to stop climbing around 3 in the afternoon. And I try to go to bed around 7 p.m., right as the sun goes down, or 8 p.m. is like, so I'm actually asleep when the sun's down. And then I wake up at 2 a.m. And I'm done. I joke, I'm done by 9 a.m. with more than most people are, doing their entire life. But I love waking up early and you have momentum.
Right.
Because in my experience, you're going to climb in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
You want it to be when you're fresh. If the sun goes down while you're climbing, you're mind fucked.
Right.
If you wake up early, yeah, it sucks for the first fucking hour. And yeah, you can't shit because your body's like, what the hell are you doing to me? And
right.
you really need to take that shit before you start. I have heard somebody screaming on lead before because he had to shit so bad and didn't have a bag or anything. And just like, he was like it just hit him.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like.
He's like on some hairy lead. And
yeah, you can't just shit. His partner's under him. So it takes, to get out of a portaledge and climb, takes 3 hours. And you can get down to 2.5, but you still got to eat breakfast. You still got to shit one at a time. You got to keep the portaledge balanced. It takes only 2 hours from a ledge, but I've never been able to just get up and get going in an hour.
Right.
So there's a lot of time suckers, but I like that part.
Mm-hmm.
I try to take an iPad with some movies, and you get surround sound with the wall behind you.
Nice.
If you go up just like 1 or 2 pitches, that's a great like date for a weekend. All they have to do is be able to jug a little.
Sure.
There's a lot of neat, fun things you can do with big walling without it being all about the nose in a day.
Right. So without going too in depth into all the systems, because there's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, what do you think would be a good objective for somebody, like for instance me?
Yeah.
For like first time big wall.
Go aid climbing. Leave your shit home. Just go aid climbing like you would for the day.
Right.
If you can't aid climb, you're gonna suck. Don't wonder.
Give me something to sink my teeth in though.
Yeah,
what route would you?
Don't
suggest?
wonder when you do anything.
Right.
You know that you can go do something, and in this case, you could go up Washington's column.
Okay.
As high as you can in a day. Good luck on a weekend, and come down. It's an 1.5-hour hike.
Right.
Or an hour without a haul bag. It's a good experience. Then you're not trying to route find with a haul bag.
Mm-hmm.
Get stuck on the core roof. Be like, yeah, whatever. And then you wrap down like most parties do, but intentional. And do it. I almost recommend pick a route. Do the same one 3 times in a row. If you haven't made it to the top by then, you'll be like, dude, all we need to take is about 40 pounds of like shit. And then we'll just sleep on that ledge and then go to the top.
Yeah.
But it can really actually be counterproductive for you to try to sleep up there, like the first try.
Right. Just because you have to bring so much more gear with you, right?
Yeah. And you could even do the nose if you're not hauling. Well, all right. Let me rewind here. If you're not hauling, you're missing half the experience.
Sure.
Go up and aid climb 1 or 2 times. Washington's column. Leaning Tower is kind of a bitch to get to, and it's a bitch to rappel because it's so overhanging. Pick a route that's like, you can do Lurking Fear. It's chill. Pick a route and just aid climb it. Then the next time, aid climb it and haul and learn how to rappel with a bag. And then the next time, go up there and spend a night. Then go push for either Washington's column, Leaning Tower, or Lurking Fear on El Capitan. Those are the three C1 plus walls, and you will do a lot better. I did Lurking Fear in 5.5 days. 2 weeks later, I went back with somebody else, did it in 2.5 days.
Hell yeah.
Because you're just familiar with the space.
Right.
You don't get a trophy for coming down because you sucked.
Yeah.
So, and it takes a lot less time. It takes a lot of time to pack and prep, and you take 5 days off work, and then you come down the next day. It's pretty defeating.
Yeah. I feel that.
Yeah.
So getting back to your climbing experience, so you got through some big walls, and at some point you found highlining, right?
Yeah, so I basically found climbing in 2004, slacklining in 2005.
Oh, okay.
So the only reason I learned how to climb was to climb El Capitan.
Right.
So I had like this singularly focused goal. And then when I slacklining, it was to highline the Lost Arrow Spire because that was the coolest thing. It was the hardest thing in the world. Not really. But it visually looked awesome. It was like most people see it that way.
Sure.
And
so how did you get introduced into highlining? Like, what was that story like for you?
Quick.
Go do your thing.
Filming. You.
All good?
Yeah, my
Sweet.
camera only goes 20 minutes, so we gotta keep it going. Time flies.
Right.
So, what was the question?
So I'm curious about your entrance into the sport. Like, how did you find highlining? Because honestly, dude, I mean, I know a couple guys that highline, and I do think that from a climber's perspective, it's a little bit more understandable. But I think from most people just seeing that, they're like, what the actual fuck are you doing?
Oh, my mind was blown the day I met somebody who didn't climb first.
Mm-hmm.
And they just like highline.
Right.
I was like, how did you do it? Because I learned all my rigging came from my climbing experience.
Yeah. And just like experience with exposure and like stuff like that.
Yeah, to go from nothing to highlining now.
That sounds
super easy now.
I mean, it sounds fucking crazy though, like mentally.
Yeah.
Seems like a big jump.
Well, I created Highline University International on HowNOTtoHighline.com in order for people to learn highlining A to Z.
Right.
My first course is done, and that is how to use a highline that's already rigged. Super helpful for people who are going to go to a highline festival. There's over 80 videos, short videos that go into the details on what you need to know. And I like breaking it down. I was like, whoa, there's a lot when you have to explain every detail.
Yeah.
Because my channel is all over the place. It's vlogging, instructional, and stunts. But the H1 course will be how to rig basic stuff, like the most basic highline you could do. You take a course like that and you go out with some friends, because there's slackliners everywhere. It's not going to take you long to learn. The path is paved.
Yeah.
But back in the day, no one knew their head from their ass. We're all guessing. We're all guessing how much force there was on these lines. We thought it was like 20 kilonewtons. We're just like, oh my God, we're overbuilding every anchor.
Right.
Because we made a sport out of American death triangles.
Yeah.
Everything you're taught not to do in climbing is what we're walking on.
Right.
So I used my climbing experience to rig poorly a highline. And I did believe in redundancy, but I didn't understand it thoroughly back then. And I used a carabiner for my leash, like you clip the...
Oh, okay.
I'm like, it's a locking carabiner. I forgot to lock. And when I fell, it opened up the carabiner, and only the nose kept me on there.
Like this, this guy right here.
Yeah, like the nose.
Fuck that.
Yeah, and
so it actually caught your full weight.
Well, it was just cockeyed sideways. Otherwise, the gate was open, and that was done. So I was like... And I didn't know you were supposed to use rings. And then
so you use wrap rings for that?
We use these big rings right behind you.
These guys?
All those guys.
Yeah, it looks like a big rappel ring.
It's a big rappel ring, and it doesn't open. And then you forget to put it on when you're rigging, so you have to de-rig it and slide it on there.
Right.
So everyone who's ever rigged a highline has forgotten to put on the leash.
Immediately, I was like, oh man, I for sure forget that.
And then your main and your backup, you just tape them together in a way they slide, and it's just like, so obvious once you see it.
Right.
So if you go to a highline festival, your brain's just going to go poof, because you'll see it. But if you've never seen this stuff before, and all you see is a primitive slackline setup at Pipeworks Climbing Gym, and you're trying to replicate that For high, it's hard.
Right. I even want to like go back a little bit with highlining itself, because I'm not even sure if everybody that listens to my channel even knows what that is. So can you just like break that down real quick?
Yeah. So slacklining is walking on 1-inch webbing.
Right.
Tension usually between 2 trees.
Mm-hmm.
You'll oftentimes see trick lining, which is the 2-inch webbing, and that is where people just butt bounce and then flip around and land back on.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That's a like different sport altogether. That hurts. And so long lining is slack lining over 100 feet in a park. I mean, there's no real solid rules with that. Highlining is where you put another piece of webbing underneath, independently rigged, underneath, and tape it together, and then put a ring on it like we talked about, tie into it, and you put it up really high.
So there's actually, when you're walking on that line, there's actually 2 layers of webbing that you're walking on?
You're walking on, only one is tensioned.
Okay.
Which is also something we didn't know back in 2013.
Okay.
We would tension both of them.
Right.
Which makes it very difficult to walk. So
the second one's a backup.
Second one's a backup.
Okay.
We usually walk with 2 rings. We only walk with 1 leash. That's the only thing that's not redundant. We usually got 3 or 4 bolts and a big BFK and a separate BFK.
Right.
And so
it's not unheard of though to have one attachment point.
No.
I mean, at least in climbing.
Climbing's so not redundant
right.
after you are a highliner. So it's actually hard for me to go back, because highlining is the most consistent, reliable way to achieve flow state and not die. Because wingsuiters can get flow state because they're going to die if they don't do their shit right.
Exactly.
Whereas climbing, if you're scared climbing, you probably have a legitimate reason to be. You're probably 30 feet above your last yellow alien, and you're gonna deck.
Yeah.
And you're freaking the fuck out.
Right.
You can feel worse than that safely highlining.
Yeah, dude, that's
so
I have no frame of reference for
this
that.
is why I like highlining, because I found it to be a lot safer.
Sure.
For the best parts of climbing, which I would get every time.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't get scared because you kind of get too used to it. So we end up doing stunts that are a little bit more dangerous, but it's still like relatively safe. That's why I like highlining. So highlining is anything where you're up high. And if you have to be above like 15, 20 feet, because when you take a fall, what we call a whipper, you're going to fall 6 feet, plus you flip around. So you're like, your head has to not hit the ground.
Right.
Low highlines are dangerous because if your main breaks and your backup catches you, remember it's loose, you'll hit the ground.
Right.
So I like to be at least 30 feet up or 3,000 feet up, because once you're up high enough, it's irrelevant.
Right. It's like a clean fall in rock climbing.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So that's highlining.
Yeah, man. I just one thing I'm curious about.
So what got me into it? I don't think I answered that question.
Sure. You can.
Is there's this really cool new thing called YouTube, and this guy named Dean Potter put out videos making highlining look cool. And a lot of people who watched his stuff got inspired to pursue this, even though there was no way to pursue it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the original people that highlined were very pioneerish.
Right.
Whereas today it feels very consumerish, but that's okay. It's just an evolution of the sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dean Potter super inspired me. And then I watched Andy Lewis on YouTube, and that inspired me, just their forms of them making it into an art form, which you'll probably recognize. A lot of my stunts, a lot of my energy is poured into styles like what they did.
Yeah. You know, I did notice that, especially with your rope swings that I've seen.
Ropes with Dan Osmond inspired me because I saw it on YouTube. And so that naturally is where my platform is, because that's where I go to learn everything, just like a lot of people do now. It's very normal now.
Sure. So it kind of seems to me that you've been like pushing your own envelope in that direction and a little more and more. And you've even mentioned things just since I've been chatting with you today. And do you feel like highlining was like a natural progression from climbing to like continue to get that feeling? And now like what might be the next step in that progression for you?
What's neat about highlining is if you feel comfortable on a 100-foot slackline or highline, I'll get chastised for using feet. We use meters as highliners, so we all are wook as fuck.
Okay.
If you're comfortable on a 30-meter highline, you make it longer. And if you're comfortable on a 100-meter highline,
sure,
you make it longer.
Sure.
And it's not uncommon now to have 200 to 300 meters long, up to 1,000 feet long. It's pretty common. Once you get longer than that, each turn takes longer. So there's a lot more waiting time. A lot more logistics.
Yeah, I imagine so.
A lot of people enjoy the 100 to 200 meter range in beautiful locations over like the 2 kilometer long Highline that we rigged in Asbestos, Canada. And
Asbestos, a place named Asbestos.
That's where they mined asbestos.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And so
is everybody fucked up in that town?
Only their egos, because nobody likes asbestos anymore.
Right.
So they're trying to bring in more of a positive vibe to be known for, and so they allowed basically us to rig the Canadian crew up there to rig.
Start with renaming their town.
Yeah, they could rename it. I have a piece of asbestos rock in my living room because it's like a souvenir.
Right.
I don't think they care if you take them. But
you're talking about,
yeah, you want to keep you can always just get the thrill by just making your Highline longer. For me, I don't enjoy it as much as, so last year I had wingsuiters fly by me while I was on Highline.
Mm-hmm.
That was a rush. Not as much of a rush as I thought. Risk reward ratio is not good enough for me, because if they fuck up, we both die, and like it's so fast that I'm like, oh, it's over.
Right.
And yeah, like I'll ankle leash. I've done stuff before. Like I don't need that kind of a rush of free solo to make me want to, like, I don't need that rush.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very personal thing that some people do. And we try to, as a sport, not glamorize it too much, because we don't want to make anybody feel like that's the ultimate achievement.
Yeah, the apex.
It's not the apex.
Right.
The apex is the whole reason I have a fuck sending shirt on is don't get too wadded up about this stuff. Don't let your ego be too much in the line. The risk with highlining is you get a lot of wows. Oh my gosh, I could never. And so your ego is just always constantly fed.
Yeah.
You go to a populated area to Highline and everyone's just worshiping you. And you don't want that stuff to get to your head. And some people are pretty good about that.
Mm-hmm.
I try to always keep in check that I'm doing this for the art, that I do my channel to educate, that Slacklife Museum is something I'm passionate about.
Right.
Bolt Busters is to make sure bolting is sustainable around the world. We shouldn't have an uphill battle in 2020 when we're trying to go to Mars, still learning how to fucking bolt basic climbs.
That's real.
Yeah, I need to make sure that everyone can learn about bolts before we get to Mars.
Okay.
I feel like we should do this in order.
Goal.
So
no, I totally get that, and I think that ego aspect it's ever present in like all the full range of sports, right? But for us, and things that apply to us, like I see it rafting on whitewater. I see it climbing all the time. I see, of course,
highlining is a very photogenic sport, and so that can
add to it.
It can add to it.
You can get a real sick Instagram following and get a bunch of likes.
Yeah, it's getting more watered down as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
But I encourage people who do pick up highlining to find a path they like. Some people like bounce tricks. Some people just like beautiful locations, the rigging.
Yeah.
I like the rigging more than the walking.
Dude, I've been slacklining for probably 4 or 5 years now, just like at parks, and like I love it. The highest I've gone is probably like 6 feet, just trying to feel it out, and see if like, oh, maybe I can go a little higher.
Yeah.
Just like trying to
stay away from the 6 to 15 feet zone.
Right. No, for sure. You get the sense when you're up there. You're like, oh, this is fucked up. Like I could definitely hurt myself.
I promote people not to slackline too much. Never over 100 meters, 300 feet in park, because it gets dangerous if you fall uncontrolled. People always fall on their arms or twist their ankles.
Right.
There are now more people who get hurt highlining just because of sheer numbers, but we just don't get hurt as often highlining. You don't hit anything.
Yeah.
If you don't hit your leash rings because you're doing bounce tricks, and even then they sell softer rings. I mean, there's some rubber ones up there that.
Oh wow.
So highlining's really safe if you do it right.
If you do it correctly, right.
And you can still get more of a rush than you're getting at 6 feet up in the park.
Sure, I bet. Oh yeah, for sure.
You know how you get good at highlining? Highline. You know how you get good at big walling? Big wall.
Right.
I'm not going to get good at acro by practicing stretches at home.
Right.
I need to stretch at home, but I want to acro.
You got to go out and get it.
You got to do it.
Yeah, you got to go get after it.
So find Highline festivals. If you want to sink your teeth into your first step, go to a Highline festival.
Mm-hmm.
Some are paid, some are free. And you can find through my channel, you can type in on slackacademics.com. We have a list on there of Facebook groups around the world. Just every city has a Facebook group, it seems like. And we made a list of them. And you can just type Control F, find your city, your town, your state, wherever. Get connected with the people. Once you know a few people, they'll tell you where the festivals are.
Right.
The one festival I've been a part of, because you can only devote so much time to festivals, is GGBY. Gobble Gobble Bitches, yeah. That's the big festival in Moab, Utah that has a bunch of Highlands where we build the space nets. If you see my channel.
Those are sick.
Yeah, we make basically space nets out of paracord and span sets and rig them up with slack lines. And so that is a fun subsidiary of what highlining is.
Mm-hmm.
That's some people like that art. If you're into rigging, you'll like nets. So
yeah, I was immediately drawn to that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's visually very impressive.
It visually looks super fun to go out there and be on one.
Right.
And of course it is. That's why I do it. But like, I think I'm over nets for a while because I just spent so much of last year and technically year before that doing things with them.
It seems like a lot of work.
Big ones are.
Yeah.
Small ones we found to be quite efficient. Like if you don't try to get too fancy with patterns.
Sure.
I mean, we even taught how to make, patterns now. But yeah, you can learn a lot about nets on my channel now.
So going back to, so you got into highlining, right? And at what point did you decide to like take the next step into, or at what point did you feel like you were experienced enough to like take this next step into what you're doing now, which is like teaching and testing gear and all that stuff?
Never.
You still don't feel like that?
Because no one was doing it is why I did it.
Sure.
Not because I felt like I knew what I was doing. So I was super self-conscious about starting.
Right.
My audio. So the reason I have this gear wall is because my original garage, I had it up because I'm, OCD and not organized.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, that's a nice backdrop. I'll film behind that. I would open up my garage door so the sun would shine off my car between 2 and 4 p.m. and I'd film between there.
Nice.
And the reason I wear hats in every single episode is because I would film over an entire week. And so you can't tell if I'm wearing a hat.
Right.
And I used to film one sentence at a time. I sucked. I didn't know what to say. If I don't know a topic, it's really hard to articulate it.
Right.
But every time I made a video, I'd research the shit out of it and then teach it. And I'm not afraid to say about things that I don't know. And then trolls, it's a self-correcting system on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
If I said something wrong, I would get...
you get corrected.
I get corrected.
Right.
And that's good. Keeps my ego in check. It's nice when people are nice about being trolls. But it's nice when people correct me on things I say wrong. Because a lot of people listen to what I say without fact-checking me.
Sure.
And so I do have a responsibility for basically lazy listeners, people who don't pursue it on their own, and that's fine. So I make sure that my information is as correct as I can be.
Yeah, and that's...
Once you hit controversial topics, it's like, well, I believe this is fine. And then once I started to have my own opinions, oh my God, I realized how little we knew. Where everyone was like, well, this guy said, and well, this guy said. And so we didn't realize how little we knew. And so I started to want to find out. So I created a brake test machine. I was basically just trees and pulleys and me pulling with my van, the end of a pulley system attached to a different pulley system.
Yeah.
And I was able to generate some serious forces. When I found out webbing, which had an MBS of, let's say, 24 kilonewtons, would break at 18 kilonewtons, I was like, what the fuck? In a web, like how you're supposed to use it. Not a knot, because knots reduce rope strength and stuff. You tie a figure eight in a rope, reduces the strength of what they say that rope is.
Correct.
I'm like, well, how do you use it? How do you just pull it straight? Like, how are you testing this shit? So I learned they use big drums or just maximize it. And I understand how they need standards.
Right.
Not like there's a conspiracy out there. But I feel like my audience has been educated that the the way you use it is going to generate different results. So now a lot of slackline companies are using the MBS of their sew-in loops, or in a weblog to actually give the number of what you actually get, because I came up with the phrase of the RBS, the realistic breaking strength. And MBS stands for manufacturer's bullshit strength, because you weren't getting. And the more I break test bolts, because I'm really into that now, climbing gear, carabiners, webbing, and all soft goods just break all over the place. It's really like, wow. You and I just did a break test in the garage. It was number 806, I believe. Mm-hmm. And then we're at 295 breaks in bolt busters. So slack snap and bolt busters are our two projects. Got $10,000 minimum into that. It helps when you're breaking a lot of old gear and people send you some stuff, but man, the bolts, we literally are buying brand new things and breaking them now. Mm-hmm. So contrary to what people think about YouTubers, some YouTubers make money when they're teaching like finances. Yeah. But as a slack, I'm thinking about making a video on how to make 3 digits in 3 years. And but I do it because I love it. I paint houses for a living. Right. I have a painting business with one employee. He's a great employee, so I can set him up in the morning, leave by around 12 or 1, maybe give a bid, maybe if I don't have to. I get home early enough that it allows me to devote this much time.
Dude, you got a lot going on too, man.
Yeah, so my business is on just autopilot.
That's cool.
That allows me to do this. So I'm able to put in the money because I think it's worth it. And I think people will end up donating or helping or maybe sponsorships as time goes on.
Sure.
And get kind of compensated on the back end. Because I had a 5-year goal when I started in 2016. I wrote out a business plan for this. I was very intentional. I'm 3.5 years in. In 5 years, I wanted to have everything there was to know about highlining on the channel and available, and then stop and have everything it costs me be compensated over time through like I'll have ads on some videos. First 1,000 views, when I post a video, don't put ads. My loyal subscribers, I'm not going to make them suffer through ads that they're watching every week.
Right.
I'm not going to plug ads in the center for the first, you don't get enough money.
I fucking hate that shit.
I hate that shit. I'm going to do that on the older videos. It's the only way to make money.
Sure.
I created a Patreon account, and it floats between 60 to 90 people, and I ask for $1 per episode. Mm-hmm. Because if I could get a couple hundred people behind it, it would pay for a lot of the stuff I'm doing. I wanted just $1 because it would make more sense. If someone's going to open up their wallet, they'll do 5 if they're going to do 1.
Sure.
I didn't want to burden anybody like that. I just wanted to know that people valued what I was doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I called them Stoke Dollars. It gives me more stoke than it does money, but a little bit of Patreon money, a little bit of ad money, $200-300 a month. Mm-hmm. Is just kind of floats the soft costs.
Sure.
Because we have 6 websites and a lot of experiments we do, and it's just to float it.
Right.
Costs $1,000 a year. Then I have an editor in India who we know through a Slackline friend who's been super helpful in the last couple months, and he'll probably edit this video as well. And it takes a lot of the burden off of me, but I also find I really enjoy editing videos.
Really?
Yeah, I really enjoy.
Holy shit, you're unique, bro.
like a puzzle. We did climbing science. We had dynamometers on us while we fell in Pipeworks climbing gym last night. And so I'm like, well, that's a story I've been excited to tell.
Right.
Climbers don't always know what force is. They think it's 9 kilonewtons on a bolt. And I'm like, it's barely 3. And so I was able to, I want to edit that story. Something like this takes a lot of time. It's pretty straightforward. If it's complicated, not filmed chronologically, and it's whatever, it's going to be kind of difficult for some third party to edit that.
Right.
So anything I don't have to do, I try not to do.
Sure. And it kind of seems like you've kind of built a system over time that it seems pretty self-sufficient. And I definitely what you're talking about with just trying to float it by. I'm working on getting some hats and stickers out. More or less, I'm probably not going to make really any money. It's probably going to get sold at cost, if not given away. But also like thinking about Patreon as well, just because it would help a lot. There's a lot of money. You know, I just got a bunch of new equipment. There's a lot of money that goes into just keeping it alive.
Yep.
And that would be a really cool place to be at as I'm content creator.
Yeah. 3.5, just so audience understands, in 3.5 years, this includes breaking a bunch of bolts. I'm $25,000 deep into what I've done here. And I've probably made $5,000 if I count like every penny I've ever found under a slackline. But I knew that going into it. It does help to have hats and stickers and stuff for branding.
Yeah.
Like you can buy the super good enough hats that I wear, but like it cost me like $25 to make these at a shop down the street because there's no really good online print to order place. That's also not $25 fucking dollars.
Dude, I've
and nobody
researched
wants
that too.
nobody wants to pay more than $25 for a hat.
No.
Because if I want to make $20 on this hat, no one's gonna pay $45.
Right.
I mean, I like the hat, but not that much.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I've learned, but Patreon's nice. It's nice to have the support. It's nice to have the ads. It's nice that every YouTuber that I've ever watched talks about they don't have one income stream. It's coming in from 7 different things.
Right.
And you don't want to get lazy on one because you don't like it. It's part of running it. If you don't run this like a business, it will not be sustainable.
Sure.
Without just a cash cow behind the scenes, like my job.
Absolutely. And so, like, really, what we're getting at here is that, like, you're doing this because you're stoked about it. This is something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah. People who don't slackline watch the channel because they've told me it's like you're just really stoked.
Yeah.
And I think the world really likes watching people that are just fucking stoked.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you watched a guy doing pottery who is just
fuck yeah,
like
fuck yeah,
so,
I can totally
like,
imagine
oh my
that.
God, look how this guy I took this thing, I made this, and you're just like, how can you be that excited about pottery? But the fact you're that excited about anything,
I mean, Bob Ross, dude.
Yeah,
Bob Ross is stoked.
He's stoked.
He's mellow, but he's stoked.
he's a stoked mellow.
Yeah.
And so people like stoke.
Right.
I have it once, but I do want to like do something else with my life. I see a pattern with highliners. If they make it past like the 3 to 5 year mark, they kind of just they go to the festivals. They don't highline. They just like they're in the community, but it's like it doesn't give them a thrill anymore.
Sure.
It's a drug that doesn't like last forever.
Right.
So
well, that's kind of what I was getting at. Is so you've been highlining for quite a long time at this point. And so like you're looking into maybe getting into acro. Did you say
I want to do CrossFit? I want to get strong because one of my art projects is what I can do in a day. You know, Yosemite culture is the nose in a day, or the Triple Crown, where they climb 3 big walls in a day. I wanted Half Dome is a hard highline, hiking up there with the gear, doing it and coming down. Lost Arrow Spire, usually you hike up there, camp, and rig it, walk it, leave it up, and the next day de-rig it. And it's usually 2 or 3 people. So when I've done those are 2 or 3 day projects with 2 or 3 people. I would like to do it with a friend in a day, both of them. Then I want to go back and do it by myself in a day. In the Lost Arrow Spire, you have to aid climb, rappel. It's like a lot of gear to take.
Right.
I want to dial in the processes, but I won't be able to do that off the couch. So this year, I need to train. I've done Half Dome twice in a day off the couch, Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim, 48 miles off the couch, and I have done Lost Arrow Spire by myself in a day off the couch. But I cannot also do Half Dome because when I got back down to the car, I couldn't do shit.
Yeah.
I'm 36 now. No, in 2 weeks, and I feel it.
Right.
Nothing's for free anymore.
I just turned 30, bro.
Yeah.
I'm on that road.
Yeah. It's not free anymore.
Right.
So I've cut my sugar in half. I'm intentional about working out now.
Yep.
And I want to stay fit because, God, for the next 30 years, I can go play hard. And nothing's more inspiring than watching some 67-year-old dude.
Dude, fuck yeah.
Or chick.
Right.
Is it okay to call women chicks if they're
I
70?
don't know, man.
If
I
they're
don't
70,
know.
is there an age
It's
limit
a
on that?
lady. A nice older lady.
A nice older lady who's a badass. And that's inspiring. I want to be that.
Right.
But they don't get it for free.
No, dude. You got to that's one thing that like it's what's cool about climbing a lot, and even just like having even a period in your life where you did climb a lot, is that it builds in a strength and an athleticism that it lasts a little bit longer. Like I just got off, me and my buddy we're really contemplating getting into some big walling. So we're like in a similar place as you right now. We're like, yo, we got to get after it. Also, this friend and myself, we did a attempt on the John Muir Trail this past season. We were looking to hike it in 14 days, which is a fucking push, my guy.
Okay.
And so we didn't succeed. We both ended up with injuries and pulled out
from it.
Yeah, man. My IT band was all fucked up. I couldn't walk on it. And my buddy's heels were just like it looked like somebody with a steak knife just cut the back of his heels off.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was rough, and in truth, we didn't prepare at all. We were just like we just totally underestimated yo, fuck it. We're strong guys, we can get after it. And also like what you're saying, fuck sending. In like digesting that in a way that is we're failing forward. It's okay that we didn't complete the trail. That's like not really what it was about.
Yeah.
The process to sharing that with all my friends and listeners, and that whole process was totally awesome. With that said, we definitely want to be successful in this new adventure, and so we're spending this whole year just like getting after it. And today, we went down to Pipeworks and got some roped climbing in. And to be totally real with you, I was surprised like how well I did. I was like, shit, I thought I would have lost it all. And
when was the last time you climbed?
Probably last season, dude.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Like I said, like I was telling you earlier, I spend quite a bit of time on whitewater now, just because I make a lot of my money doing that during climbing season, which is unfortunate. That's a hard thing to balance. But now as I'm getting older, I'm definitely realizing that more and more you just have to stay after it. Like wake up, do pull-ups, wake up, get some calisthenics in. I just try to make those things a regular part of my life. That way I can continue to play and have fun. And you're right, dude. Like it's getting harder. It's already getting harder for me.
I think it's more means more if you earn it.
Yeah.
I've never had to work for something outdoors physically. I just always mentally do it.
Mm-hmm.
If the nose was hard, I would make my logistics way more smooth rather than learning how to climb 5'10".
Yeah. Well, you kind of have a similar mentality as me, and in that I've always just like dove in to whatever new thing it was, like whether it was building something I had no building experience or climbing or any of these things. Like a lot of the times I just threw myself at it and learned from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as we get older too, we start to realize that's like probably not always the best way to do things.
It's inefficient, but it's what keeps us curious. Like your 20s, you're just super curious about everything.
Right.
Slacklining and the time that I found it was just a really, really unique time to get into the sport, because the sport was growing enough that there was enough useful gear being produced now.
Right.
And the last 7 years has just been, it's been moving forward. Like every 6 months, we completely have a new technology in our sport.
Right.
And I've seen in the last year that we have hardly innovated anything. Like, wow, so, and nobody's going for the space race anymore is what I call it, when everyone's trying to go for the 1, 2, 3 kilometers. It's like, who can push it harder, faster?
Mm-hmm.
People care less and less about longer highlines now. It's been done. We get it. Some people just have stamina. Some people don't. And it becomes dependent on weather.
Right.
It's a weather game. If you, when we had 17 people or whatever wanted to walk the 2 kilometer in Canada, it was like, all right, you only get 3 hours. Think about that. And hold your arms up for 3 hours.
Sure.
And then you are hoping you don't get the windy part of the day or the non-windy part of the day. No wind's hard. A little bit of wind is nice.
Why is no wind hard?
Because the wiggle you send down the line, nothing stops it.
Oh,
but
okay.
a little bit of wind is called send wind.
Okay.
Because it absorbs the energy.
Sure.
And yeah, it's just neat to have the festivals are becoming more legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to explain to a ranger what slacklining is.
Oh, that must be nice.
Yeah. So there's pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
Because now there's more rules being built around it.
Sure.
But they at least don't think you're trying to kill yourself. They've seen enough to know we're not. Because if a ranger's never seen it before and they see you walking a truck strap like 3,000 feet up, they think you're trying to kill yourself.
Yeah.
And they usually don't have the ears to hear. They just glaze over as soon as you start talking rigging. So
where my question is like where you're saying that it kind of sounds like highlining has plateaued a little bit in that sense?
Mildly.
Okay. So where's the next what's like the next thing?
So the latest technology that I focused on last year was using segmented highlines. If you wanted to walk 1,000 foot long highline, you had to buy 1,000, maybe 1,100 feet of webbing. Last year's big technology thing that I pushed pretty hard because it solves a lot of problems for my personal goals that I have is segmented. So I only buy pieces of webbing that are only 50 meters long now with sew-in loops on the end. And then we have connectors that connect them together.
We're talking about like a hard connection, like a D-ring or something like that?
Well, that is square quick links.
Oh, okay.
Is a common way, or oval quick links. I prefer to use soft shackles, which is what all those blue things are up there.
Okay.
And but that's soft on soft. So people are like, oh, does that cut through itself?
Sure.
Or does it come undone on its own? So a lot of like, I love soft shackles. It's like the theme on the channel that I love soft shackles. So they're a sailing tool. They're not. We're just borrowing this technology. So that's another reason that I did a lot of brake tests and experiments because I want to know what you can and cannot do with them.
Right.
But that blue soft shackles breaks at 60 or 70 kilonewtons.
Holy shit.
Stronger than basically any carabiner.
Right.
Or I use those to break quick links. So it's just interesting to see, like, if I want something super duper, I consider them more bomber. But, yeah, I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about where highlining is going.
Where highlining's going. So every year we're making incremental changes, but nothing so drastic that you have to completely relearn how to highline. Because when we went from super tight highlines to making them kind of loose, not as loose as you saw in my living room. That's like zero tension.
This dude has a literally a highline in his living room strapped. He's got bolts in his walls.
Yeah, you can't stand on it because it's very close to the ceiling. But you can pull yourself up on it and stuff. And yeah, so we make our highlines loose because when they wiggle, it doesn't have like a reverb that comes back.
I see. That makes
sense.
The
feedback is not aggressive. But you have to be more chill and relax, like you'd imagine a hippie being. And so that made all the old people, old in slacklining, by the way, is like 3 years. All the old people have to relearn how to highline from scratch.
Right.
So that was, we haven't had something like that in a while. People are like, oh, loose backups. The webbing will flip over the main. And you might step on the backup because it's just fluttering there. People got used to it. People are basically bitching now about having to walk over the segmented parts because they're a little bit bulgy. I'm like, you'll get over it eventually. Right. If you're walking a line that has a segment, a line long enough for that, a segment shouldn't throw you off.
Well, it should only be a small section.
Yeah, it's only this big. But if your foot touches something that's weird or rolly, it's like, oh.
Right.
But like, you just jiggle your leash. It goes over. But it allows us to... if you have a bad section in your webbing, and it's like there's so many pros with segmented highlines.
That makes sense to me.
I cut all my there's irreplaceable webbing I have in my garage. Cut everything down to 50 meters. So I'm like, I married this idea, and I did it on YouTube. Like it's like this guy stands behind the system.
Right. Is it a sewn loop?
So yeah,
at the end.
Yeah, so we have a sewn loop that I don't know if I have anything in here, and it basically
like a dog bone kind of like what we were testing earlier.
Kind of looks like the end
okay.
of a personal anchor.
Sure.
And by doing that, you just use a connector. You don't need these web locks that lock your webbing that you can pull one way but not the other.
Okay.
They weigh a lot. They cost $120. You obviously can't put that in the middle of your Highline and have a ring go over it. So but as far as where the sport's going,
right.
I love the fact that I started this in 2016 while we were still learning this stuff, while I was still learning so much. I hope to put out all the courses, everything there is to know about highlining on the fucking internet. Then I feel done. Because I can't work in my shop until I've cleaned things up. I can't work at my desk until at least that space is good. I don't feel like I can move on from highlining if the information isn't organized. It's all over the fucking place. And it's like, yeah, there's very good videos out there that some people have made, but they're like lost on Facebook. If you guys have a great video to put out, don't put it on Facebook. The Facebook is like you see it, and a week later you can't even find it. Right. I get all my views on Facebook. I get 5,000 views on a video, and that's the last time I'll ever get views on that video. But if you want to learn something, you go to YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, that's widely known.
Yeah, but if you don't have subscribers, you have to have a platform.
Mm-hmm.
So if like somebody wants to share something or make a video, I'm more than happy to share the audience. It's not like I get something for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they're passionate about it, I want them to share with I want everything in one place. Slackademics.com is all the Slackline videos and articles and vlogs and everything ever, art, everything that up to the time when we made it a year or two ago, that was everything on the internet in one website, like a organized database.
Yeah.
Some databases are like just long lists. So there's improvements we want to make to that. It'll be incorporated into the school. So if you want to learn highlining, you can learn it at HowNOTtoHighline.com eventually.
Yeah. It's a work in progress.
And we already have the Zero course out, and the Bolting Bible, the 2020 version will be out there because that's a 3-year project. We've had the Bolting Bible out for a year and a half, but we've made so much progress from Bolt Busters, what we've learned. And when you put information out there, the old timer and OG people are very quick to correct you if you haven't done anything right, which is helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they don't show up until you put yourself out there.
Right.
So now we have information that we can update it with, put all of our brake tests on there so we can have a 2020 version that's like super great. If you want to learn bolting, you can learn it on the Bolting Bible at slackademics.com.
So there's been some movement in technology in terms of like what you're talking about with segmented lines and whatnot. But what about, like, you were telling me earlier, first of all, I definitely want to talk about the space nets at least a little bit, just because I think it looks fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's like for sure. Like, I've seen my friends that do highlining, they post pictures up. Like you said, it's a very photogenic sport.
Yeah.
And you know, I think it looks cool, but the space net grabbed my attention. And so that's, I think, one thing. And then also you were talking about like people base jumping off of them and like all this shit. So is there a new thing that's coming down the pipeline where like people are trying to maybe blend other sports with it, or you know, what's up next on the horizon, you think?
Something I think that made Dean Potter pretty special back in the day when he was doing stuff is the fact that he would combine base jumping with climbing.
Right.
That he would combine base jumping with highlining.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are different when you combine things. I would like to combine acro with space nets.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
With super tiny space nets where you can't see it under a person. You just see 3 highlines coming to a point. You can combine so much. So lately, this last year, we've been combining, inspired by some Canadians that started to do this, and some people in Europe, but I wasn't quite sure of their projects until we did it. We had wingsuiters fly by us. So we're combining the two sports. So they'd fly above or below us. I mean, Daniel Risteau, we were in the Sierras when we did our project, and he was within 6 feet of me, going 110 miles an hour.
Above you or below you?
6 feet diagonally above me.
Okay.
He didn't want to aim for below because if I were to fall, his window would be
right.
It was in a very special place for both of us
Mhm.
where we did it. Meant a lot. Unfortunately, we weren't able to share all the details because
Sure.
the nature of wingsuiting.
Yeah.
But we did the nets, and when we built it in segments for the GGBY festival. And we had kind of a smaller net, and one of my friends suggested, why don't we make the hole bigger? And him and I talking, it was like, oh, we could have the wingsuiters go through a bigger hole. If we had a bigger hole, we could set up a Highline in that hole, because it's like it's like a paradox having a Highline inside of a space net, only held up by a space net.
Right.
So it's a walkable line.
Mm-hmm.
And
how big of a hole are we talking here?
400 square feet.
Holy
20
shit.
by 20.
Okay.
And this was rigged
So
at the
big
festival.
fucking space net.
A BFH, a big fucking hole
Yeah.
in the middle of this BFN.
Yeah, right.
And we made it into segments because we made it in my living room. I didn't have a spot that I could just leave it rigged up,
Mm-hmm.
which would be nice, but you can't take it down, rig it, take it down, rig it.
Right.
It kind of unravels until you get it done. So I figured out a way to replace the net that was originally at GGBY, which was Andy Lewis's net, who basically kind of combined tree netting, which was it's a thing, into
It's kind of like hammocking.
like you weave paracord into branches.
Yeah, okay.
But it's like permanent.
Oh.
And there's ways to do it correctly and not correctly. You hurt the
seems
tree.
like you could fuck the tree up a little bit.
Yeah, you never want to like squeeze a branch, and you don't want to do it on trees that aren't yours. Like,
Yeah, that's rude.
yeah, you're putting plastic in trees. Keep it to a minimum.
Yeah.
But there's a huge community around it.
Mhm.
Andy took that and put it up in the air with his space nets. Then he made one bigger and bigger and bigger until he built basically the big space net. The big space net is his net.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we first met Andy, it was at GGBY, and he base jumped into the net and then base jumped out of the net without repacking.
No, hold on. Jumped into the net.
He jumped into the net from a paraglide tow.
Like, so pulled his chute.
No, bear hugged a paraglider,
What the fuck?
got pulled up high enough, let go of the paraglider,
Landed into the net?
pulled his base parachute,
Okay.
flew the parachute to land in the net. That was my first 15-minute experience at GGBY.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah, he's nuts.
That's fucking nuts.
So then, over I think the next year, we're like, oh my God, Andy. And then the next year, we got to hang out with him. And him and I clicked, and then we went to Mexico on a gig that he had. And my ex-wife and I went to Mexico with him, and we really connected. So him and I just have like this really great chemistry because his art is similar to mine.
Right.
But I've been watching him on YouTube for years. And so it was really cool for me to get to know him.
You want to shout out his YouTube channel? Because I don't know about this.
Basically, he is he's doing base jump now.
Okay.
So if you go to Base Jump Moab, you can base jump with him. He's doing tandems. One of the few people in the world that does tandem
Whoa,
base jumps.
That's kind of gnarly.
And one of my few videos from just a little while ago, you just type in Ryan Jinks base jump. It's the only one I've ever done. It's we base jumped out of the net that I built with a team of people in my living room, and we jumped. Him and I are the only people to jump out of it because his net was rigged. Other base jumpers were out of that net.
Right.
So for me to get to do projects with him has been really cool. And for me to do some of my art projects has been kind of like correlating with what he's done. He's a better athlete, stronger, but the style is the same. And I think that's what we like about each other.
So I have to ask, Andy is he's running a business based around tandem.
Yeah, it's $500 a jump.
That must be a hell of a liability waiver.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's still risk involved, but it's like top roping versus big walling.
Sure.
Yeah, there's risk in top roping, but they like PCA and do two brake cords. Like the parachute's coming out. Really, the only risk is if it like you get a line twist and you come into the wall. The parachute will open, but the way I explain it, like
That's
I don't even
gnarly,
think
though.
twists are really likely to happen. So you are jumping off a cliff though. But if you want to experience it and not go through all the stuff, like it's pretty neat.
Yeah, it sounds like the only.
He honestly should charge more, so don't ever bitch about $500.
No, for real. Not that. I'm just like, yo, I don't think I got the balls to do that.
So that's his current business. I'm super proud of him for building that because he's trying to make money slacklining, but like there's no money in this. And anyways, he's the net guy.
Okay.
So for me, it's been very inspiring for me to do nets. 2.5 years ago, I got married on his net, and he was my best man. And that was
rad.
As a slackliner, it was the coolest thing I could do. It was really a unique wedding. It was super fun. A lot of people got involved. It got big on the internet because it visually looks amazing.
Looks cool, yeah.
And so that was special. So it was something I wanted to do when he wasn't wanting to use his net for GGBY anymore. I was like, I will build a net. So we built a net that was basically, it's 1,600 square feet. It's 40 feet by 40 feet. It's bigger than my house. And but the hole in the middle is not woven, but that allows us to do like additional things with it, make it 3D, have the slackline. But what we did this last fall was we rigged it at a 45-degree angle, and we had 4 wingsuiters fly through it. Fuck. And that video is going to be coming out in maybe about 2 or 3 weeks from now, which this might be coming out after that one. But anyways,
we'll figure that
out. Anyways, check out my channel. You'll get to see 4 wingsuiters fly at over 100 miles per hour through a hole.
That's insane.
Which is actually technically very hard.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, besides what it looks like.
Right.
Terrain flyers, they get near the ground and they can be like, oh, I have more space. I'll get closer. I have closer. And they can gauge where they're going. This is just a big fucking hole they have to hit with nothing to reference. And if you look through their GoPro images, when they're up on the paragliders, is how they get towed up.
They're all jumping off of paragliders?
The one guy paraglided himself, cut away.
What the fuck?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you got to let me know when stuff like this is happening now because I want to see this.
Yeah, it was. So what was crazy is Andy and I are on the net, and Sylvan were on the net while they went through. It just really combined stupidity, right? And we caught amazing footage. They obviously, their GoPros are cool, but you can't even see the net.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It seems like
from up there.
Yeah,
from even 1,000 feet up to 2,000 feet up.
It's paracord.
Yeah, it's just
fucking thin.
Yeah, I mean, 40 feet by 40 feet sounds big, but if you're 2,000 feet up, up El Cap, and you're supposed to look at like a car, like a row of 4 cars, it's not a big target.
Right.
Anyways, that was an amazing project. Another thing we combined, I want to make space nets 3-dimensional now.
What does that mean?
Right now, it's a 2D plane, right? You're pulling it with slack lines.
Right.
Everything's being held up by slack lines. But if you can grab additional slack lines and pull down on it and add force down, you can build like a box shape and get it rigid.
Oh.
We want to... all the legs that hold up a net are stiff, super stiff. And so we want to I want walkable legs. So the next evolution of that is to attach a leg not holding up the net and rig it loose. So you now have walkable space legs.
That's fucking cool.
You can do a lot of things with nets.
Yeah, I think, again, it's just speaking to how like visually impressive it is, I think that is one of those things that's probably going to end up drawing more people to the sport. Just from my perspective, I was immediately like drawn in, like, oh, okay, I can.
It grabs people's attention. Yeah. 1% of those people end up pursuing it till they're doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's growing our sport exponentially. I like the fact that this channel's available. I'm getting them while they're young.
Yeah.
I'm going to make more slackline specific videos. People who are typing in slacklining, I want them to be able to find the channel and have research. The reason I didn't do slacklining specifically for the first 3 years is because there were already videos about that. But if I want my channel to feel complete, I will make maybe a series of 10 videos. Like, how hard is it to make a video in the park on a sunny day versus trying to jump off of a cliff with a tire on a 1,000-foot Highline that you rig by yourself in a day on an exit that's never been done while you're packing for
Yeah.
GGBY. Like
Yeah.
that to me is like my average video.
Mm-hmm.
It's really like I put way too much effort into the content. I can only edit so much. I don't do 4K. Don't care. My content is my baby.
Yeah.
People watch it because I'm stoked, and 50% education, 50% humor.
Yeah.
Or
Entertainment.
Not everybody finds my dad jokes funny. Because I don't want to put out anything that's not half and half. Because if it's just one and not the other, it's not helping anybody.
Right. I'm gonna tune out too.
Yeah. So that's always been my focus, is trying to keep things funny. So that's why the Bolting Bible, which teaches everything about how to bolt for climbing and highlining, is funny. We just do so many sexual innuendos with a Bible theme because that's just funny.
Right. I mean, you got to have fun with it. I mean, listen, like, to make mention again, really, like, drive this home is like, you're not making any money off this. This is something that
if I'm giving a book away for free that I spent a lot of my life figuring out,
you better enjoy making it.
Yeah. I don't care if the audience doesn't fucking like it. I don't care if 10% don't like it.
Right.
I obviously want people to read it,
of course,
or we're not going to have good bolts
right.
installed. But
and that's kind of what I was getting at, like, for transparency. Before we started, I was like, yo, make sure that, I want to make sure that you feel comfortable saying whatever the fuck you want, because it's the same thing for me, like, not only do I want my content to be authentic, but also, like, it's funnier and more enjoyable. And the truth is that, like, I'm never intending to offend people at all by anything that I say, or anybody that is on, like, that's not their intention at all either. Yeah. But the truth is that we're not going to tiptoe around that in order to talk about what it is that we want to talk about, and I always say, like, listen, like, if something you hear, like, pisses you off, just talk to me about it. I'm a regular person.
Because this channel is not a monetary thing, which is interesting from a social experiment standpoint, I do whatever the fuck I want.
Right.
And whatever I think is funny is what I pursue. We created a couple years ago a Church of Slacklife because people treat this like a religion. And it was an interesting social experiment.
And so I want to clarify, you legitimately made a religion.
Yeah, we didn't make another church. I don't think most people realize that you can make a religion.
Yeah, how do you do that? I might want to do that.
And I mean, I hate to bust a bubble, but your religion at some point was created.
Right. Somebody made it.
Somebody made it. And so it was, ever heard the phrase is study one religion, it'll take you a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Study two, it takes you an hour. And so create one and you understand all of them.
Right.
And it's interesting. We didn't want to manipulate people. And so, like, it didn't really, like, go very far.
That's probably a good call.
Yeah, it was a good call. It was just, but it was interesting. Like, oh, it's missing this dynamic. It's like, oh, if you wanted somebody to stay with you forever, you gotta abuse them, like, not just mildly. I really abuse them, like, so they never think for themselves. Like,
right, yeah.
I'm like, but if you're just,
that's some Jim Jones shit, man.
Yeah, if you're super genuine, and he's like, come and go as you please, whatever you want, no boundaries, no. He's like, no. People are like, oh yeah, this is funny.
Right.
But Europe was like, what the fuck? They hated it.
Was it like European, like, highliners?
Yeah, it was for highliners.
Right.
European community hated it. Either they were offended that we took something they loved and made it religious, or we took religion and was mocking it. Americans were a mixed bag. So many people were offended, like, because we made a religion.
Right. Which is just fucking relax.
Yeah. And then
relax.
The South Americans literally turned it into a cult.
That's fucking cool.
Because they loved the idea, because it really satisfied this deep cultural Catholicism thing, because it's Catholic-based theme, and they love it. And
is that a thing that's still down in South America?
Yeah, I mean, they don't pray to slack gods. Everything's a joking, but we did it. It pissed people off.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some stunts that, if you haven't seen it, too bad. It's off the internet now. That really upset people. But it was so funny.
Can you talk about that?
No.
Okay.
No. If you haven't seen it on the internet, just ask any slackliner if Ryan loves soft shackles.
Okay.
They'll tell you.
All right.
So trying to rebrand myself, because if you do too many stupid things, that becomes your identity. The SpaceNet wedding was my identity for a while because it was so big. We got about was it 150 million views.
Holy shit.
Not on my YouTube channel, but because other places share it.
Yeah, right.
It was over 200 million views. Anyways, it was big and kept sharing and went viral 3 or 4 times, and it became my identity. And that's why I removed it off of my channel, because I don't want to be the guy with the Space Net wedding anymore.
Yeah.
It was one of my art projects, just like all these other art projects. And it was a cool and special time in my life, but I've moved on. And I'm pursuing these other things. I want to be known as a Slack nerd, somebody who's broken bolts and tested stuff and made information available. I don't want to be known for a stunt that I did, or it wasn't a public publicity stunt. We genuinely wanted to get married.
Yeah. I mean,
and it was normal for us.
Yeah, right.
Just the whole world's like, what?
Well, as a Slack or as a Highliner, that seems like a pretty natural progression. I totally understand.
Yeah, and another couple got
that.
married on a Space Net that year as well, and nobody's done it since. It's
Dude, maybe you should just be a wedding planner. Maybe you should just be a fucking Space Net wedding planner.
We thought we could. We're gonna charge people a ton if they want to do this. And it's like, no, it don't. People like going like, what?
Right.
But we learned that the bigger videos go, the more negativity in the comments. And now that I get quite a few comments now, I'm only at 14, almost 15,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's not too many, but even at this level, I can only read comments. I read them all, sort of. I read them once a month when I'm in a good headspace, because they're so negative. People are wishing you die.
Why are you reading them?
Because there's people who have genuine questions that I want to be engaged with what I call my 1,000-person audience. The 1,000 Slackliners who watch my channel, who are going to go out and do these things, and they're not just consumers. I think if you enjoy watching what I do, that's great. But I'm doing this for the 1,000 people in my group.
So what we need is a volunteer to sift through the comments. And it's like a negativity diaper. Someone to absorb all the bullshit.
Yeah, it's a thing.
It is.
People who commented on the wedding, they're like, oh, those people deserve to die.
You're like, what?
Because for whatever reason.
Right.
Like, it wasn't one comment.
Well, I mean, people say wild shit about climbers, too. And I feel like so much of that is just like having no understanding at all of what's going on.
Oftentimes, if people's egos are in check. So if, like, Alex does something crazy cool, they're like, oh, well, he deserves to die.
Right.
And I'm like,
fuck off, dude.
Actually, no.
That doesn't make actually a pretty fucking rad dude.
It doesn't make any sense, that logic. I just think your ego is so just like
blown out
of mind, because you can't even understand what he's doing.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel less than.
Dude, it's getting a little crazy with the Free Solo documentary. Like, I used to feel a lot of responsibility when someone would ask me questions about, like, okay, so like Alex Honnold, like, what's going on with that? I used to feel a lot of responsibility of explaining, like, yo, this guy is like, what he did isn't just important because of how high he climbed or the fact that he climbed without a rope. It's like, also he was doing world-class climbing. Like, I can't fucking climb a 12, so I'm definitely not doing it without a rope on, and
I can't do it with the top rope.
Right. So getting that across is something I've taken that responsibility on, but now it's just so big. Everyone's talking about it, and for me, it's a little exhausting at times to just be like, I always like to say, like, people try to get me into new sports all the time. Like, mountain biking has been a thing people try to get me into, which I'm just like, I'm done hitting the ground. And I'm at a point in my life where, like, I don't want to fucking hit the ground anymore, which is why I climb, honestly.
Because if you do, you won't know it.
Yeah, you're fucking, and that's why I don't boulder outside. Like, it's just like, I like my body, and I think that's one of those things that just doesn't really get communicated about climbing. People are just so shocked by, like, what it is that they're seeing us do, going up high. Fear of heights. I always say, like, we're all afraid of heights, of course, but that's just like a natural survival instinct. What we're doing is trying to conquer that in a safe way, really. And so I have been afraid on trad climbs, of course. I think that anybody has pushed their grade in trad probably knows that feeling. But at the same time, like, most of the climbing I do is, like, super, super safe.
Yeah. Most of the Highlines I do. I'll occasionally do a stunt that would increase my risk to, let's say, a 3% death rate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not high.
No, dude, if you're fucking driving a car,
me texting about the trip on my way up to it while driving is way more dangerous.
Yeah, that's way more dangerous. If you're driving a motorcycle, I mean, come on.
So I love, I admire Alex, love the movie.
Yeah.
I hope to create, I got some people stoked. I hope to create a spoof on Free Solo, not the preview for it, but a full length spoof.
Okay.
And we'll probably like climb roll arches, make it super funny. Like, yeah, people who don't climb, they're like, whoa. And then the people who do climb, they're like, how did he do it with 40 other people on the route? And just like the whole movie would be like that.
Right. So
I love making fun of people I admire. Dan Osman, I did a project where I was basically making fun of Andy. And then I done a project where I made fun of Dan Osman. I put on a wig, got a big camcorder, and I jumped off the rostrum and repeated his rostrum rope swing. And I love doing that and recreating these memorable moments in our community that and actually doing the stunt. Yeah. Like we'd really free solo like Royal Arches, like well, not that hard, but but we can make it funny. So yeah, it's dude, humor. It's like humor and educating is just so fucking fun.
Well, I mean, to be totally real with you, I think it's like so necessary in our sports. Because that's a huge part of what attracted me to rock climbing to begin with is like, you know, I grew up listening to death metal and like, you know, being in the punk scene and shit like that. And, you know, I'm anti-authority to the very core. And that is like so a part of the climbing world, you know, like living out of your fucking van, you know, running from rangers, like whatever it may be, like doing some crazy stunt. It is so at the heart of what climbing is. That like it would be weird if you were all serious and strict about it, you know?
I have to pretend like I hate the man too, even though the man's been very good to me.
Oh yeah.
So I'd like, yeah, I get it.
Right.
But at the same time, you know, I aim to be the 1%. I don't.
Right.
I'm not gonna bitch about it.
Yeah. Sure.
But yeah, the community as a whole is. We're pretty anti-authoritarian.
Yeah, we're a pretty funny group of dudes and ladies and whatever.
Well, slacklining in nature is very like flash. It's called flash rigging. Rig something you're kind of not supposed to. There's no rules, almost anywhere.
Right. Just hasn't caught up yet. We're in like the heyday of highlining.
Yeah,
still.
like you're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll probably get in trouble rope swinging in Yosemite if we continue to do it at the level we're doing it. But right now, there's no rules, and so it's kind of like. I'm a rule follower. I'm not going to go do something that's explicitly against the law, but if it's gray, I'm going to shit all over it.
Right. Well, you know, that kind of like that gets into bolting.
Yeah.
You know? And so I want to talk about that with you as well, because that's something I've always been confused upon or about is like, you know, okay, so there are some bolts. There is a history of old school guys. You know, we all know about Warren Harding and Royal and their battle on the nose, but yet we still use bolts, right? Yeah. So some is okay, but not too much.
Bitch about money, but you still got to use it,
right? Yeah. So like, so you know, you're
same thing.
You're creating a bolting Bible, and so what is kind of like, what do you think is a good like modern ethic for bolting? Like, should it be done? Where should it be done?
In the end of all my new bolting videos, when we show how to do it or brake test them, is basically we have two things we want the audience to understand. Please don't bolt if you don't have to. And if you do, put in something that'll last a long, long time.
Right.
That's our message. A lot of people get the same satisfaction from bolting as graffiti artists get after tagging a wall. They're like, I did this, and everyone will see it. It's an ego thing. It's like when you see I put these bolts in, John. I did that 2 years ago, and it's just like, it's an ego thing.
Right. It's
fine. It's fine if you get the feeling, but don't do it for that reason. If if the route's not safe, replace the bolts, try to reuse the holes.
Mm-hmm.
If the route is a great route, something worth bolting, bolt it. Try to use either
Right. It should be aesthetic. It should be inspiring.
Camouflage hangers are like, they don't always last. The color doesn't always last. But like, try to use few bolts or camouflage or be minimal. Highlining, we put in 4 bolts because we don't know what the fuck we're doing.
Yeah.
We don't need technically more than 2, but 3 is like the standard now.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can do less bolting.
Right.
Like, where we have GGBY, I feel like there's 100 bolts that don't need to be there. We didn't know that. Now we do.
Mm-hmm.
I tested in sandstone as well, so we could know that for future bolting. So, yeah, please don't bolt if you don't have to. But if you're going to, we have a resource for you.
I've always wondered about, like, Tuolumne is one of those areas that's pretty notorious for having some big runouts.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wondered, so is that just a relic, you think, of previous generations that we haven't put a bolt in between that 100-foot run out?
So retro bolting or changing what the original person did,
right?
Culturally is really frowned upon.
Yeah, it's just looked down upon.
Like really looked down upon.
Right.
Like you'll get hurt by somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that's nice because there's some places around the world where people just bolt whatever, and
right.
I can see like
and new climbing areas in the States too.
Yeah, and being that you had to hand drill on lead,
yeah,
I get it. I get it. But I would climb Snake Dyke. I mean, even a 50-foot bolt or a 50-foot run out instead of a 100-foot run out.
Yeah, it's like
you're either way, you're fucked.
Yeah, you're fucked.
Basically, don't climb it if you can't.
Right.
It's not.
And that is the old school ethic. It really is.
Yeah, I don't let anybody rope jump on my system that I rig anymore. Because I don't like the consumer attitude on some things. Because rope jumping, you don't have to do anything except jump.
Right.
We'll pull you up, tie you in, all this. But it's like, man, if we rig with my gear, I rig it for my video, for my channel, for my brand and my systems, my style. I've kind of created 3 different innovations for rope jumping to do it the style I do. How is that not going to be one big liability? Fuck.
Right.
Bullseye on my forehead.
Right.
If somebody got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's already a bad brand problem if somebody got hurt on my rigging.
Yeah.
Yeah. But from a liability perspective,
yeah, you're fucked.
I'd be fucked.
Yeah.
But if you and I go big walling in exchange for not money, but let's say you take me whitewater rafting,
totally down,
and you put your gree in backwards, fall and hit the ledge and die. Well, sucks for me. I have to like decide whether or not I take the bag down or you down.
Right.
I'm like, what do I do? You call a Yostar? Well, that doesn't always work. I've done it twice and fuck them. I do have friends in there, though.
Yeah, I think they're mostly nice people.
They're mostly nice people. It's just the 2 times I've needed them, they were not there. But it's not a guaranteed thing. You have to understand going up on El Cap that no one's holding your fucking hand.
Right.
And that's actually a really good thing to understand that
absolutely.
You're not going to get your butt wiped for you whenever you're like, I got to scream.
I think it, again, like getting back to what we were talking about where like climbing has always been, I mean, of course it's changing now, but like climbing has always been kind of like an outlaw sport, And like, I think that is part of what has drawn me to it is that there is no one out there to fucking help you.
My favorite
You're up there on lead on your own,
is, do you need a license for that?
Right.
Or a permit?
Well,
no. I didn't have to ask permission from nobody.
Nobody. Well, so I was listening to the Enormocast. Are you familiar with that podcast?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so it's a climbing podcast. Definitely go give that a listen. Shout out to Chris Cluse. But he was speaking with this Australian climber, and they were talking about bolting because in Australia, they have a different sort of sandstone it's softer, and so they have a different, they use what's called carrot bolts, which is, it's shaped like a carrot, and it's pounded in, and they use different hangers on them that can come on and off, which can create problems. And so, I think that bolting conversation is an interesting one, but one thing that they brought up that I hadn't thought about was the fact that in the States, bolting is done by us, by our community, and there's no one out there. No, there wasn't an organization. There's no OSHA did not put the fucking bolts in LCAP, okay? You know, and like and
there's no one to sue if they don't stay in.
Right. And like what you're talking about, just like about the community, you know, via YouTube or wherever, kind of self policing and being like, yo, don't put that up. You did that wrong, whatever. You know, it's something that's kind of remarkable about our community is that we're able to police ourselves so well, you know, and it's something I think that might begin to change. You know, I think that the fact that so many people are coming into the sport, I think that things like that might begin to change. And I don't know if that's for the better or not.
Well, it's going to happen. It doesn't matter if it's good or not.
Right.
The reason I called it the Bolting Bible is people act like people used to act when I went to church back in the day. They're so dogmatic about things they don't know. And even if you're right, you don't have to be a dick about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you know, it's better to use stainless. It'll last longer, so try to put those in. Instead of being like, what the fuck? You're fucking up our lands because you're putting in zinc-plated shit.
Right.
I'm like, there are two ways to go about that. Educate people. People who bitch to me about how I did things, but they never told me how to do things. It's like, be nice to each other. You're acting like the community I fucking left.
Yeah.
So, but having a resource that someone can point to that has empirical evidence that I researched and demonstrated has eliminated so much trolling that I've seen because no one's arguing 2 points based on who said what, said he said they said. It's,
right.
No, it's usually in conversations with a link to something I've done.
Right.
And that's in the slackline community is people don't argue like they used to. They might argue about access and like how you should go about it. You're like, wait till you get in trouble, fight the law, or get permission first.
Right.
Depends on your area.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that I think we have a long way to go as a community too. Just making sure, you know, I've always been really kind of a stickler about leaving shit behind, and yet I use these bolts, right? So that is a little hypocritical on my part, but you know, just like I know it's an issue on LCAP. Finding shit in cracks, finding whether it's old cans that have been up there for years and years and years, but like I think that we sometimes end up in situations that are difficult to get out of, and therefore are able to easily make lots of excuses about like, oh, we can leave this here, or it's okay to dump our shit off of the edge, or like whatever else, you know. And I think that the bolting conversation kind of like skirts around that a lot of times, you know, like whether or not, I mean, it is questionable at times. There are cultural places of value that we end up just fucking pounding bolts into. And look, I'm not making a statement either way, good or bad. Of course, I want to climb those routes, but it's something to be. I think it's definitely something to be aware of.
Yeah, I've placed bolts by hand legally in Yosemite that were next to really ugly, unmaintained, rusty railing. And people are giving me shit. And I'm like, but there was no way to rig naturally safely. And this is a beautiful spot that will probably be repeated by many people. And we ended up taking the bolts out. But it was like, yeah, I understand that you don't want bolts placed just anywhere. But if we can put in good bolts that'll last forever, you just never have to change them.
Right.
The other thing is, if you're going, what's the other thing? Bolting. I forget.
We're talking about like when you should bolt, when it's okay. That line next to some rusty railings. So you ended up chopping them?
No, they come out. You leave the nut at the bottom because we weren't trying to reuse the hole or anything. We weren't placing anything. They were just power bolts. I'm not that fond of them, but don't shit on people who bolt too quickly, because everybody does it on their own dime.
Right.
They took the time to carry that drill up, put those bolts in, hopefully learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And like I had hundreds of dollars into a project, and then I had a couple people shit on me. I'm like, it hurt my feelings a lot more than it would than if I just left garbage behind because I'm like, I went
This
a
is
lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
And a lot of people who end up putting in tons of hours, hundreds of dollars to get the right glue, to get the gun. God damn it, I need another gun. I need this bolt. You wait for the bolt. There's shipping in the bolt from Europe. You get it all together. You got to get that next drill bit. All right, so you got it all together. You practice, you put it in, you go install, and people bitch about it. And you're like, I was trying to make my little improvement in the community, and people shit on it.
Right.
I think people go through that much work to bolt aren't trying to be malicious.
Yeah.
It's the lack of information that has caused a lot of the bad bolting. If you're not using titanium near the ocean, it's not, stainless doesn't withstand the ocean environment. And now we have great titanium bolts available. You use the right ones and it's fine. Right now, people are just spending a lot of their own money replacing bolts. I have a friend who's replacing with titanium bolts in Mallorca. It's Spain, near the ocean. Things are rusting. They're super dangerous. Thailand is a super dangerous spot. But people have put a lot of their own money into it.
Yeah, and I think to kind of like wrap a little bow on that, I think it's kind of up to us individually. Like we were saying, like, first of all, it's really up to us to police ourselves, make sure that the bolts that we're putting in are fucking bomber, as bomber as they can be. It's the correct material for the place. You know, being careful with the rock that we're bolting in, and being aware of all those pieces. And it is, you know, a very, like, speaking to how large the climbing community is now, people who go out and bolt, that's a pretty small group of people in comparison.
Really is,
you know, to how many people that are bolting. And so, like, how many people who get to go out and climb these routes, you know, and do so safely. I think that there's a good amount of respect that we can exchange there. And also, I would also venture to say that, you know, it's up to us to police ourselves culturally as well. As a community, I think it's pretty important that we start to put our best foot forward in the way that we communicate with each other. You know, I see it like walking around a climbing gym all the time. There's just like this overarching vibe of ego in a sport that has grown so much. We are not in the days of Royal Robbins and Warren Harding. You know, there is so many people in our sport now, and if we want people to do things safely, if we want our sport to continue to grow, and for research like what you're doing to get done, then you got to be nice to people. You got to want to attract people, right? You don't want the new person who's coming into your local gym to be scared away by some fucking douchebag with his shirt off. You know, it's just with too big of an ego, you know, just like cap it. Fucking cap it. We can move on.
You know what I like about what Alex did on El Cap? Nothing's cooler.
Right.
Do it for yourself.
Yeah.
There's nothing cool left in highlining. You just be artsy about it.
To be the first.
So then last year, because everything I do is about being funny, I try to bag as many pointless world records I can.
Okay.
They're like the legit,
a lot of fucking irons in the fire,
yeah,
my guy.
like legit stupid sense. I have like the world's largest tire swing. Because when I did the rope jump at Tap Point, I got a tire from my local shop, painted it green, named it Pink Tube because there's green webbing named Pink Tube, and put it around me. And I didn't realize how much gear I was going to have on my harness. It was like super weird feeling. And yes, I was tied into the rope as well, but it was also like I was legitimately in the tire. And I did a tire swing, and it was scary.
Yeah,
it was the first time
scary.
my exit's been done, and like I didn't know if I'd hit the rock at the bottom because I didn't know my rope was. It's really embarrassing to die if nothing fails, because that just means you suck.
Yeah.
One more thing about the bolting is you don't get a participation award.
No.
It's like, well, cool, you did all this great work, you put in all your money, but if you're doing something that's not necessary, clearly not like in an area that's populated, you're not going to get too many applauses for it.
Right.
And in our culture of highlining now, it's becoming more of a trophy. Can you rig that line all natural? Meaning no bolts. And so can you rig it off cams or wrapping boulders, wrapping trees, extending anchors, getting creative? That's like you can beat your chest if you can walk away leaving no trace that you were there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Instead of being like, I bolted this line.
Right.
Nobody is like, wow, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny making the bolting Bible now because I feel like nobody bolts highlines anymore. Nobody, like anybody who establishes new ones only looks for spots that can more or less be done all natural.
That's like the new wave.
Because
it makes sense.
you can only highlight in so many spots.
Right.
Those lines are established. If they need bolts, they have bolts. But there are some areas in Yosemite that have some pretty bad bolts that we hope this year to replace now that we understand enough about them in order to choose the right bolt to last what I say is longer than us.
Mm-hmm.
If we're replacing those bolts before we die, we didn't use the right bolts.
Right. So
from old age, die from old age.
Yeah. I like how you added that. So you know, kind of like like moving forward, I'm curious, like, so what is it that is like next on your plate? Like, what is it that you're stoked about? You know, I know that you got a lot of things going on with your channel, but like, what is really getting you stoked? I know for me, it's like in the future, I'd like to start paragliding. That's where I'm going for sure. But like, what is it that you're really excited about right now?
All right. So if you're listening to this in double speed, slow it down. In my channel, I want to finish the bolting Bible, finish the school, make an amazing museum of slacklife. It's right now just a wall in my living room, but I want to have every webbing, every web lock, everything that's ever been cool in the sport, plus some climbing stuff on that wall, because this is a young enough stage in our sport that the first highliner is still alive, and so we want to get everything we can.
Mm-hmm.
Break 1,000 bolts was our goal. We're at 295. I wanted to break 2,500 things on slack snap, because eventually I would love to just, like, you know, burn the man, you know, build a beautiful piece of art and burn it to the ground and move on with your fucking life.
Right.
And so there is a done point I want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do Lost Arrow Spire and Half Dome in a day. I want to rig a mile-long highline by myself in a day on all my own gear. Goals. And so a lot of you, if you watch my channel, you can actually watch from the beginning till now this progression of things I'm promoting versus not promoting for that specific goal. That is the apex of goals.
Mm-hmm.
After that,
There's nothing yet.
There's nothing left other than being able to walk a mile, which I don't know if I could ever.
Yeah.
It's just...
Has it been done?
Oh, yeah. People walk. It's getting more and more common.
Mm-hmm.
But someone who's not naturally gifted at walking, whose joints hurt in the morning, I can get fitter, I could get better, but at the same time, I can't stay mind-fucked for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And, man, it doesn't matter to me.
Right.
Rigging big lines has always been a sponsored event by the highest athletes in the world. I want to be able to take what we do, and I want anybody in any country with any income situation to be able to rig big lines by joining together all the communities webbing into one giant line.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's why I push segmented high lines. Right. I don't think they're more efficient. I think it's way better to have a 300-meter piece of webbing.
It makes it more accessible.
When you go rig a 300-meter line, other than the fall factor, which it helps to have maybe, you know, a segment in there in case one section breaks. You don't like it's all one, but it's for the people who talk to me every day on Facebook Messenger who are from other countries,
right,
who are like, I don't know a slackliner in my entire country. They slackline. They know they checked. They're the only ones.
Yeah.
Import tax is bad. They can't get gear. They have to make their own gear. Sewing loops. They're like, oh, you shouldn't teach people how to do sewing loops. There's so much variety in them. Sorry. People are sewing loops.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know.
You mean like sewing loops at home?
Yeah. And there's a sewing loop on that green webbing right by you.
This guy?
Yep.
You did this?
No. Because I don't have to. But if you have to,
you have access.
You use bonded 138 thread or 270 text thread, but you don't use 92 thread, and you stick with bar text. Don't try to get fancy, like things you like, the most basic shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then always double up what we know you need. And then more oftentimes than not, they can send it to me and I'll break test it for them, because if a loop breaks, they're going to fucking die.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make this accessible to everyone around the world, because there's so much talent around the world that I don't want just the 1% of highliners who have opportunity.
White guys in America, right?
Yeah. Well, the Europeans have our ass on this sport, but I don't want first world countries to have the only stab at this game.
Okay. There's
a super talented guy in Brazil who just doesn't have money.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's limited on where he can go. And there's sponsorships just aren't a thing in this sport. So that is in my slackline goals. And as far as channel goes, I want to start monetizing it in a way that's sustainable. And if I can put on, if I can generate some income from this, I can do that through maybe branching out into climbing, backpacking reviews. I'm going to always stick to the slack life, always bring it back home to why I like doing it.
Yeah.
But if I can get my audience to 100,000 subscribers, I will be able to make this sustainable and always do science experiments. I like to be the mythbusters of climbing, slacklining.
That's cool.
Personally, I would like to do something other than slacklining, so this stays fresh for me. And that is me getting into acro and CrossFit and maybe paragliding and I realize I don't have to marry every fucking sport that I try. So I'm thinking about getting my A license in skydiving, which is kind of a commitment, but I do live 5 minutes from the Lodi Jump Center. Get the license, stop. Maybe get a license that I could skydive around the world. Go get I hate water, by the way. Scuba dive. Get a scuba diving license.
Yep, I'm in the same boat, man.
Check it off a list. So I could go scuba diving if I go to Maui.
Yeah.
But I don't have to marry every sport. But I want to stay in this. I joke that I'm monogamish. I like to be super committed to one thing and then dabble.
Right.
But always stay committed to the one thing.
Yeah.
So that is kind of where I'm at with the sports right now. But I'm also pulled in a lot of different directions because I do so much in the slacklining.
Right. I've always been a jack of all trades, especially with the sports that I'm interested in. You know, like whether it's snowboarding or whitewater rafting, climbing, whatever it is, and paragliding is definitely what's next up on my list. I listened to this. Do you know what vol biv is?
Mm-mm.
So vol biv is French for fly camping. This is the fucking coolest shit to me, man. So
fly camping?
Fly camping.
Oh,
so what these guys
God.
are doing is, and you know, Uli Steck he was kind of like a part of this movement too. And it is very much the same thing that we were talking about earlier, where we're like combining different sports. And so I listened to this podcast, the Dirtbag Diaries, and they did an episode on this. And this guy Gavin McGlurg, who's got a podcast of his own called Cloud-Based Mayhem. It's pretty technical. If you don't know anything about paragliding, you kind of got to do some research to catch up. But these cats are going out there with really lightweight backpacking gear and really lightweight paragliders, fucking hiking to the top of mountains, flying as far as they fucking can, sometimes 8-hour flights, landing as high as they can to do it again for multiple days in a row.
Oh, they don't camp while they fly.
No.
Okay.
They fly to a position, camp, and then fly again.
Okay.
So it's kind of like leapfrogging.
Because I want to try to do a mile by myself, or try and do highline a mile by taking a hammock and just a lightweight and basically big wall.
Right.
And do it over like 2 days.
That's fucking gnarly, dude.
Yeah. Or like take a 4-hour break and then try it again.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, you know, I think that those are the things that I'm getting really excited about now. Oh, but the reason why I was telling you about that is I know this guy out in Tahoe. His name's Mitch Neary. He owns Tahoe Paragliding, and he told me when I was talking to him like about getting into paragliding, he's like, "Go ahead and leave your trad rack in your closet like now, because if you get into this, it's gonna consume you," which I'm actually pretty pumped for.
It might.
It
depends if you get bit by the bug.
They call it sky crack for a reason.
I never thought I would give up climbing.
Mm-hmm.
But I found something that gives me what I'm looking for in climbing more consistently.
Mm-hmm.
The sky sports scare me because I'm not afraid of falling to my death.
Right.
I'm afraid of getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get hurt. I want all or nothing.
Yeah.
I love highlining.
Yeah. Sweet. So on that note, my friend, what do you got going on? Do you want to plug anything?
Yeah, we something I love business, and I'm thinking about branching this channel into running a business in a Slack life friendly way.
Okay.
But I started a coffee business with my friends.
No shit. I love coffee.
They love coffee. I love business. I drink coffee. There's only 2 other companies, I guess, in the States that are making high-grade specialty freeze-dried coffee.
Oh.
And so we're doing blind taste tests where
Alpine Start is one of them, I think.
I'm not sure. I think
know.
that sounds familiar.
Okay.
If we give you 2 cups and one was our freeze-dried coffee versus a freshly brewed high-grade espresso,
Okay.
People can't necessarily tell the difference.
And
so
I would take that challenge.
Yeah, we're going to our first shipments come out, I think, in March 1st. We've been working on this for about 4 or 5 months now. It takes a lot to get your products out, and your packaging and your branding and the website.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. Plus, we're having to create a quality product. We want it to be a bang when we get it out there. So you can go to brewjuno.com and order a pack of freeze-dried coffee because we want it to be super convenient, but we don't want it to taste like dirt.
Yeah.
So they kind of really sold me on this idea. My first shipment I get is in 2 days. And we've been working on this for a while, and they're really stoked on the end product. And we're talking about getting like 10 freeze dryers and an automatic espresso machine in the next 12 months and really building that up.
I will happily give you a review on that, my friend.
Yeah, perfect.
Hell yeah.
So go to brewjuno.com if you want to help support this, because this doesn't support itself.
And what else we got going on, man? You got when can we expect the new Bolting Bible?
My goal is March 2020. So I was gonna get it done, have a bunch of people edit it, but as you can see, my hats say super good enough. I'm going to put out what I think is a finished product and then have people correct it as I just make corrections as people see. Because I want to get the information out there. So
and that's going to be free, right?
It's all free. The Bolting Bible is all free because I think people are cheap, and it's more important for me to have the information out there than it is to
make a profit on it.
Make $20.
Yeah.
So I probably have spots in there where if you've read the whole thing, please consider donating $20 because we've spent $20,000 creating this.
Fair.
So the Bolting Bible is coming out 2020, March. My Highline school, you can start with the H0 course right now on HowNOTtoHighline.com. H1, the rigging portion, the stuff people are really waiting for, probably I think June, July.
Okay.
It'll come out. I'm going to keep it a little bit simpler. And rigging I love a lot more than how to sit start, so it'll probably be a lot easier for me.
Cool.
If you're from Lodi and you have a house that needs painting, I paint houses for a living. Everything but cars. If I paint your car, it's on accident. And then
what's the name of your
jinxpainting.com.
Okay.
Jinx Painting.
Hit them up, guys.
Yeah, really creative name, I know. So that's all the adventures I got going on right now. You can go to slackademics.com, find some Slack friends. You can see the Bolting Bible on there now. It'll be on HowNOTtoHighline. I'm going to get like 100 different shirt designs that are Slack. We've got some on there now.
That one for sure. That one's sick.
Yeah, we got about 12 designs out right now, but it's print to order, so you can order to whatever size, color, shape, men, women, small, big, that you want. It doesn't make sense for us to stockpile a bunch of stuff nobody's going to wear here. So we're going to have a lot of designs. That's 10,000 options on threadless.com. Threadless.slacklife.com.
Kick ass, man.
Yeah, so plugged all that.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
It was a good conversation.
So where can people find your podcast again?
So the Bewilderness Podcast, you can find it on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, I think, as well. Or directly on my website. That's bewildernesspodcast.com.
Bewilderness or the Bewilderness?
So the podcast, when you search it on iTunes, it's going to be the Bewilderness Podcast.
Add the THE in there.
Right, and my website is bewildernesspodcast.com.
Bewilderness.
We gotta have some hats and stickers coming out pretty soon, so look out for that. And yeah, we just got this new microphone set up, so I hope y'all are appreciating the audio quality on this one.
Yeah, and leave in the comments below if you've listened to the whole thing. You're probably, phone setting on the ground. If you have YouTube Red, you're just phones off in your pocket while you listen to this. Tell us if you like this podcast stuff. I've had some people push me to do podcasts on this channel as well. If you like them videotaped, leave that in the comments below as well, so he knows whether or not that's something he should pursue as a next stage for his podcast.
Killer, man.
Yeah, this has been
I was
fun.
Psyched. Yeah,
I imagine this is over an hour long.
I think so. Yeah.
It didn't feel like it, other than the fact I have to pee. Yeah. This is
fun. Let's do it again, man.
Let's do it again.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks for watching, but don't be an idiot and try highlining without going with somebody who knows what they're doing the first time you go out. We actually have available now the Highline University International, which is A to Z, everything you need to know before you go highlining. This teaches you how to use a highline that's already rigged. So let's talk about some leash management. That's the H0 course, which is out right now and available at HowNOTtoHighline.com. It's over 100 videos with quizzes, PDFs, illustrations, and it comes with homework and teachers that you submit it to. It's a very interactive online school, so you get to learn in person online.